The sun above the arena was not a sun at all. It was a hovering plasma disk that pulsed with artificial heat, casting long golden shadows across the cracked ground. Dust clung to the tension in the air, thick and unmoving. The amphitheater walls climbed high in every direction, layered with vines of wire and smoke glass banners, each etched with names of warriors long dead. And yet, the most important moment unfolding now had nothing to do with the match. It started small, quiet, and wrong. He did not know her name. No one did. The old alien woman had wandered too close to the boundary stones, her steps unsure, her garment dragging. A servant of the sand, bent with time, not danger, but the gladiator tall, plated in mirror black armor, and laced with trophies from his kills, saw movement and turned. He was still high on blood, still growling from the victory moments ago. And in the silence that followed the final cheer, the crowd caught the mistake. The gladiator believed her to be a challenger. She barely had time to look up. The man moved before he thought. A single breath, and he was running. No one followed. Not a soul stirred in the stands. They all watched in confusion, maybe curiosity, but no one stepped forward. Just him. His boots pounded the arena floor like war drums, arms pumping, heart in his throat. He was no warrior, not from this world, not even supposed to be inside the fighting zone. But he saw her, this frail being, whose body flinched as the shadow of the warrior grew over her, and something primitive and painful surged in his chest. He screamed something. It was not a word, more like a bark of rage and fear. The gladiator turned, slow and confident, raising a jagged spear longer than the old woman was tall. Then the man slammed into him. The impact sounded like bone against metal. He did not think about how heavy the gladiator was, or how useless his fist might be against armor. He just collided with all the strength he had, enough to knock the tip of the spear sideways. It gouged the ground instead of the old woman's chest. Sparks spat. The crowd made a sound, a collective inhale, sharp and full of disbelief. She fell backward, crawling, shielding her face. Her gray fingers trembled as she tried to whisper thanks. The man did not let himself look at her. He was focused, on survival, on slowing time, on the next second. The gladiator grinned not with his mouth, but with his whole posture, the way he rolled his shoulders, towering over this idiot who dared to interfere. He was not angry, not yet, just amused. But that was worse. The man felt it, the weight of being smaller, weaker, uninvited. His heart thumped. The spear rose again. He did not run. Instead, he stood between them, spread his arms, palms out, chest rising. I said, stop. His voice cracked slightly, but it rang across the arena. The silence that followed felt like a vacuum. The gladiator tilted his head, reptilian eyes narrowing beneath his helm. The spear did not lower. Then a new sound. Footsteps, soft, coordinated, multiplying. 12 women stepped into the light at once. They were not from the same bloodline, but they shared a style robes of metallic silk, eyes rimmed with glowing ink, hair braided with symbols of status and tribe. Some had violet skin. Others were jade-toned, copper, or pale blue. They moved like dancers trained from birth, their feet never disturbing the dust. As they descended from the shaded gallery, the crowd leaned forward, murmuring. Each woman stopped at the edge of the arena, forming a crescent behind the man. They were his wives. No one knew how a single human, no name carved into the stones. No noble title had come to marry 12 alien women of high standing. Some said it was a diplomatic ritual gone wrong. Others whispered of soul bond readings that never should have matched. Whatever the truth, they stood there now silent, watching their expressions unreadable. And the gladiator noticed. He lowered the spear an inch. The man's voice came again, this time steady. She is unarmed. Look at her. She is not your opponent. The gladiator said nothing, just blinked, then finally spoke, his voice a low buzz behind the helm. She crossed the line. She is blind, the man said, and old. She did not know. She entered the circle, the gladiator hissed. She is no threat. Silence again. The gladiator's hand flexed. Then something unexpected happened. The old woman, still crouched, still trembling, reached out and touched the man's calf with her fingertips. Just a touch. But the gladiator saw it. So did the crowd. So did the 12 wives. She had claimed him. Not sexually, not ritually, but in their culture, even the audience understood this. The act of reaching to a protector meant something ancient, a declaration of safekeeping. It placed honor in the one who defended. The gladiator backed away. The man felt a wave of relief so strong he nearly fell. The wives, still standing at the edge, lowered their heads in silent unity. And then it was over. No blood, no roar of victory. Just an echoing hush and the strange sense that something irreversible had shifted. As the man helped the old woman to her feet, slow, respectful, his hands shaking more than hers, he finally looked toward his wives. None of them smiled, but none of them looked away either. They saw it. All of them. He did not remember walking out of the arena. One moment, he was helping the old woman into the shade. The next, he was surrounded by silence, the kind that comes after lightning, and standing in a corridor carved from black glass, its walls humming faintly with energy. No one spoke to him. No officials reprimanded him for interrupting the sacred dueling ground. No guards pulled him away. They just let him go. His hands were still shaking. He glanced down, a smear of dust on his shirt, a thread pulled from her robe still clinging to his sleeve. For some reason, that detail made his throat tighten. He reached to brush it away, then stopped. He left it there. Outside, a night wind began to rise, curling down the hallway like a whispered warning. The day was ending. The arena lights would soon dim. But something inside him still pulsed, warm and humming, the echo of a decision made without hesitation. He had stepped between a killer and a stranger, and now he could not return to the man he had been that morning. He reached the private quarters. The door slid open without sound. Inside, the light was dimmer than usual. Gold lanterns hung from ceiling vines, casting slow-moving patterns across the curved walls. It smelled of violet oil and pressed robes, the kind of room meant for meditation or waiting. All 12 of them were already inside. They stood in a semicircle, silent, still in the ceremonial garments they had worn at the arena, some with dust on their hems, others with hair still pinned back in ritual styles. The man stopped just inside the doorway. None of them moved. He cleared his throat, suddenly aware of how mortal he felt. I did not know she would step into the ring, he said, voice quiet. No answer. I could not let him kill her. Still, silence. One of the women, the tallest, her skin a shade like mist on dark glass, stepped forward. Her name was Leary. She had once been a warrior herself, her right wrist marked with the blue band of single combat survivors. She spoke softly, but every word rang sharp and deliberate. She was from the desert sect, Leary said, those who follow the old gaze. The man hesitated. I do not know what that means. It means she is considered expendable, another wife answered. This one, younger Viola, with copper-toned skin and eyes like dusk fire. She is old, blind, and unmarried. Her death would not have been mourned. She mattered, he said firmly, to herself, to someone. A pause. Then a new voice, soft, unsure, Serena, the smallest of the 12. She stepped closer, her bare feet making no sound on the stone floor. And to you, she asked? The question did not feel like an accusation, more like a note in a song she had been listening for, one she could finally hum. He looked at her. Yes. In that moment, yes. None of the wives spoke again for a long while. They simply looked at him, as if trying to understand something that had never quite clicked before. Until now. Then one of them, Evren, a quiet woman who usually kept to her text and avoided confrontation, moved. She came forward slowly, stopping just in front of him. Her face was unreadable. and then gently she knelt. The motion was not loud, but it hit him like a thunderclap. She bowed her head. "You are not our husband because of prophecy or misreading," she said. "You are our husband because you stood in front of a weapon and said stop." Another followed Ratha the dancer with silver lines across her shoulders. She lowered herself beside Everin. "We watched you, not just today," she said. "All these months. You tried to understand us. You never forced closeness. You never demanded we love you." A third voice Maida, who had never once addressed him directly. "But today we saw, you are not a man of our world, but you have the spirit we were taught to serve." More footsteps. One by one, each wife stepped forward. Some bowed, others placed their hands lightly on his arm, shoulder, or chest, not claiming but recognizing. A silent acknowledgement, a slow, blooming kind of respect. And something else, not worship, but gravity. Until finally, Leary, the first to speak, the last to move, knelt before him too. She met his eyes. "Today we saw you stand. So now we follow." He felt the breath catch in his lungs. 12 women, 12 lives, 12 futures once tied to a contract they did not believe in. Now choosing him. Not by rule, not by law, but by witness. He looked around, not sure what to do with his hands, his voice, or his soul. "I am not what you deserve," he said finally. "I did what anyone should have done." "Then why did no one else?" Vela asked gently. The silence returned, but this time it wrapped around them like warmth. Not absence, presence, a full, shared moment. Then Serena rose and did something none of them had done before. She reached for his hand, slowly, gently, and threaded her fingers through his. Her palm was warm, small, steady. "I have never called a man master," she whispered. He shook his head. "Please, do not." But her grip tightened. "Not possessive, just real." "You do not understand," she said, stepping close. "Here on our world, it does not mean ruler. It means the one who leads by heart." One by one they echoed her. Quiet voices, repeating the phrase. The one who leads by heart. He had never felt more naked. Not even the arena had made him feel this vulnerable. And yet, they stood with him now, all of them. Eyes no longer guarded, shoulders no longer distant. The wall that had always been between them, made of fear, culture, misunderstanding, had cracked. He could see them now, and they could finally see him. As the wind outside whispered down the corridor again, this time cool and clean, a thought struck him like a bell in the chest. Whatever came next, it would no longer be about endurance, or duty, or pretending. It would be about becoming worthy, not just of their touch, but of their trust. He did not wake up in his bed the next morning. He woke up on the roof. Wrapped in a ceremonial shawl he did not remember putting on, his back against the smooth stone, and 12 sleeping lanterns still flickering faintly in the corners of the open sky terrace. The stars above were low and bright, their constellations unfamiliar, glowing in colors that no human eye had ever seen before he came to this world. But even now, the memories of the night refused to settle. They had not touched him, not in the way his thoughts wanted to rewrite, not sexually, not possessively. They had only sat with him, each wife taking turns to share stories, short ones, without full explanations. Just images, pieces of childhood, memories of things long buried. One talked about her first time falling from a tree. Another spoke of the taste of salt berries, forbidden at her birth temple. Another had only said a name and then gone silent. They had not tried to seduce him. They had trusted him. And that, somehow, had been more intimate than anything physical could have been. He sat up slowly, letting the cold air slice through his confusion, and stared across the city beyond the estate's edge. It was waking now, towers of silver light flickering on, dome-shaped houses rising gently from their sleep state. From this high up, he could see the arena too, now dark, abandoned, as if what had happened yesterday was already being buried. But it was not forgotten. The message came before midday. It arrived in the form of a living scroll, a strip of glowing fabric, curled inside the mouth of a feathered courier drone. When he unrolled it, the text shifted to match his tongue. 3 words pulsed at the center. "You dishonored law." He stared at them for a long time. There was no seal, no sender, just threat in its purest, quietest form. When he stepped into the main atrium, Leary was already there. She stood near the pool, arms folded behind her back, her expression unreadable. "You saw it too," he said. She nodded once. "It is from the trial cast." He exhaled through his nose. "So it begins." "It always would," she replied. "We just did not know what would light the fire." The other wives joined them slowly. Some were dressed plainly, others still half ready, but each carried a posture that had changed since the day before. Not guarded, not detached. Now they moved like a unit, even in silence. "They want me to answer for stepping into the ring," he said, "even if it was to save someone." "No," Maida replied, "not just that." He looked at her. She held his gaze. "You did it in front of the 12. The realization sat cold in his stomach. "They think you belong to them, not me." Viella spoke from behind him. "Our world allows humans, but not leaders." That word again. Leader, he had never tried to be one. He had only reacted, only done what he thought was right. But maybe here that was the difference. "So they will test you," Leary said. "They will not strike in daylight. They will not banish you openly. They will test your soul." "How?" She walked closer, her bare feet silent. "By touching what you protect, one by one, until they find your breaking point." His jaw clenched. He wanted to deny it, wanted to call it paranoia, drama, but everything in her voice told him this was not theory. It was history. And it was beginning again. That night the test came. Not with blood or violence, but with illusion. A guest arrived at the estate, a merchant of memory dust, known for offering nostalgic experiences for the elite. The wives accepted the visit without suspicion. Such vendors were common before the festival seasons. But when the man entered, the lights in the room dimmed unnaturally. And then they saw her. The old woman from the arena, walking again slowly, perfectly across the marble floor. Her eyes glowed gold now, her robes trailed light. But it was not her. It was a memory, or rather a fabrication stitched from the arena's public recordings. The vendor had extracted the moment she touched the human's leg and turned it into a display. "She is kneeling," Serena whispered, backing away. "No," Evrine said. "She never did." But in the projection, the illusion, the woman knelt at his feet, raised her hands, spoke a phrase none of them had heard. "He is the chosen. Kneel with me." The wives looked at each other, confused, frightened, uncertain. The man stood. "Shut it off." The vendor blinked, still smiling. "It is just a tribute, a reenactment." "It's a lie," he growled. The man raised his hands in defense. "The people believe it. That is enough. Truth is only what survives retelling." "Then let me offer a truth of my own." He grabbed the device, a thin, flower-shaped projector, and crushed it in his hand. Sparks spat. The room darkened. The vendor did not argue. He bowed, pale now, and left without a word. But the damage had already begun. That night, some of the wives did not sleep. By morning, 2 of them were gone. Leary found their message written in steam along the bathing wall. "We are not leaving in fear, but in respect. You were not born for this war." He read it twice, then a third time. But no matter how softly the words were written, they cracked something inside him. He felt the loss physically, like a thread had been yanked from his spine. 2 gone, 10 remained. And they watched him differently now, not with distrust, but with something heavier. Burden. The kind only leaders carry. The arena looked different now. Not larger, though it somehow felt that way. Not brighter, though the ceremonial glow discs cast golden halos across every stone. It was the silence that changed everything, Not the hush of indifference like last time, but a poised, crackling stillness. The crowd was massive now. Tiered rows filled with citizens from every caste, every climate region, every belief circle. Some wore fine robes, some bore painted skin, some had eyes that glowed faintly from within. But all of them came for one reason: to watch a human stand alone. At the center, the circle had been drawn anew, not in blood this time, but in ash and silver powder. No weapons, no barriers. Just a ring of expectation. The trial lords sat on their high thrones, unmoving. Statues with breath. They did not speak. They did not blink. They were not here to grant fairness, only spectacle. He stood barefoot at the center. He had chosen plain clothes, no armor, no badge. He looked like a man who had wandered in by mistake, and yet he stood straight, shoulders squared, eyes forward. 12 sets of footsteps approached behind him, his wives. They came without music, without fanfare. They wore robes of midnight gray woven with the thread of the oath symbol. One by one, they stopped just outside the circle, forming a silent ring. Guardians who could not interfere. Witnesses with hearts louder than the crowd. He turned slightly, just enough to see Serena. She nodded once. That was enough. Then the challenger stepped in. The Gladiator. Same armor, same frame, same spear. Only now he bore the official seal of the trial lords, etched glowing red into the chest of his armor. This was no longer sport, it was ceremony. The crowd inhaled. The voice of the proclaimer rang out across the space, sharp and ancient. Right of proof, trial by stillness. The accused shall not strike, shall not flee, shall not speak, only stand. The blade shall fall once. He felt his breath slow, heart pounding, yes, but his spine held firm. If the accused remains standing, he is true. If he falls, he is false. A low gong sounded. The gladiator began to move. Not fast, not brutish, but deliberate. A dance designed to draw fear. The way his boots pressed the dust. The way his spear spun once, catching the light. The man did not flinch. He stared ahead. Behind him, he could feel them, the 12 hearts that now beat in rhythm with his own. He did not look at them. He did not need to. They were there. The gladiator stopped a few steps away. Their eyes locked. And then the swing. Fast. Like lightning. The spear came from above, slicing down with a sharp whistle. The tip aimed straight for the man's collarbone, not lethal, but brutal. He did not move. The impact knocked him sideways. Not down, but sideways. His body crumpled at the knees, nearly buckling. The edge of the blade tore his shirt, sliced skin. Blood welled instantly, but his feet somehow remained rooted. He clenched his jaw, breathed, and stood upright again. The crowd gasped. The gladiator blinked, once more confusion than rage. He had struck clean, hard, enough to fell most warriors. But the man still stood. The proclaimer's voice echoed once more. One strike, the trial is complete. Silence. Then the voice of Leary. Not shouted, not forced, just a simple declaration. He stands. Then Viola echoed louder. He stands. Then Serena. He stands. One by one, they called it out, the phrase swelling like a wave through the arena. The crowd began to murmur, then repeat. Soon the lower stands were chanting it. He stands. He stands. He stands. The gladiator stepped back, his spear lowered. Then in a move that shocked even the trial lords, he dropped it. Clang. He turned and walked away. No protest, no fury, just respect. And the trial lords said nothing. They had nothing left to say. The crowd erupted. Cheers, roars, fists raised, not because he had won, but because he had proven, with pain, with stillness, with truth. He turned finally toward the 12 women, blood on his shoulder, breath short, and they came forward, not all at once, but in a slow, steady wave. No ceremony now, just emotion. Leary touched his wound first, fingers light. You should rest. I will, he said softly. Viola stood close behind. You could have died. I know. Maida looked at him for a long moment, then simply whispered, Thank you. It was Serena again who crossed the line. Others would not. She placed her hand over his heart, then leaned close, their foreheads nearly touching. I was afraid we would lose you, she said. You almost did. She smiled through misted eyes. Then never stand alone again. He did not reply. He did not need to. Because now he understood something the arena could never erase. He had not just proven himself to the crowd, or the council, or even his wives. He had proven something to himself. That love, true, terrifying, unspoken love, was not earned through dominance or desire, but by standing when it was hardest, by staying upright when your soul begged to fall. And through that, he was no longer a husband by ritual. He had become a husband by choice. The ceremonial arena was not a place of honor. It was a reminder of obedience, a sand-covered stage soaked in generations of shame, submission, and spectacle. A place where challengers bled and dominance laughed. But today the air felt charged. The crowd of aliens, noble women draped in jewels and silks, soldiers with cruel eyes, and courtiers with parasitic smiles, filled every seat under the blazing twin suns. This was no longer about punishment. It was about possession. Yarrow stood barefoot in the sand, muscles tense, jaw set. The desert wind whipped across his face, but he did not flinch. His gaze was fixed on the looming gates across the arena, where the champion of Orvaxis would emerge, summoned by the ancient challenge rite triggered by Queen Sela herself. A test to see if Jarrow was truly worthy of being called master. Behind him, seated in a special pavilion, were his 12 alien wives, each draped in ceremonial armor and veils of their clan. 12 distinct cultures, 12 powerful bloodlines, all watching him, all waiting. And beside them, protected behind shimmering force fields, was the same elderly alien woman Jarrow had once shielded with nothing more than his body in defiance. Are you afraid? Asked a familiar voice. He turned to see Nira, the youngest of his wives, the silver-eyed telepath from the moon cities of Glyth. I would be stupid not to be, he said. Nira smiled. Good, then win anyway. The gates rumbled, chains groaned, and from the shadows of the steel maw stepped the champion. A beast, no a monstrosity, a seven-limbed Orvaxian gladiator known as Vergkor the Mawborn. 10 feet tall, 4 arms, each with different weapons fused into his flesh. Serrated bone swords, plasma gauntlets, a tail like a blade, and his chest carried the marks of over 300 kills. The crowd roared. But Jarrow did not move. You were a fool to answer the Queen's challenge, the announcer's voice echoed from the sky speakers. But let all see how long a mere human lasts against the crown's greatest war beast. The gong struck. Vergkor charged. Jarrow barely had time to breathe. He rolled to the side, narrowly missing the tail whip that cleaved a chunk of stone from the wall behind him. Dust flew. The audience gasped. The sand burned underfoot, but he stayed light, moving with speed and strategy. He knew brute strength was suicide. So he used what humans had always used to survive alien brutality: instinct. Dodge, counter, bait, evade. Twice he got in close, planting pressure point strikes with his fists and elbows to the beast's unarmored joints. But it was like punching a wall of wet stone. Pain lit up his arms, but he did not stop. Then came the tail again, this time slicing open his thigh. He stumbled. The crowd surged in noise, thinking it was the end. But from the royal box, one voice shattered the tension. It was Queen Sela. Get up! It was not a plea. It was a command. Jarrow looked up, blood trailing down his leg. 12 pairs of alien eyes met his, not with worry, but with faith. He forced himself up, and then he smiled. This was not a fight he could win with fists, but with intention. Yes. He sprinted toward Vergkor, but instead of attacking, he screamed at the top of his lungs, Now! Above from the sky, something shimmered. Nira's telepathic warning had not been idle before the match. She and the other wives had prepared. Through secret connections, small tech implants, and their own inherited clan abilities, they had synchronized a silent gift for him, hidden just above the arena, an energy weapon, hovering in stealth mode. It dropped the moment Jaro called. He caught it midair. It was not alien. It was human. A collapsible carbon alloy spear. Virkor turned, but it was too late. Jaro rammed the spear through the beast's left armpit, the only known weak point in Orvaxian bone plating. A fountain of black ichor sprayed into the air. The crowd gasped. The champion screamed, but Jaro did not stop. He spun behind the beast, yanked the spear free, then shoved it up through the lower spine with precision honed from surviving back alley wars on Earth. With a final roar, Virkor crashed to the ground. Silence. Then, victory! Shouted the announcer. The arena exploded into noise. But no voice was louder than Queen Sella's. He has claimed the right. You will all honor him, not just as husband, but as Dominus. The wives stood in unison and walked down the steps surrounding Jaro. Each of them bowed, not out of submission, but of choice. The old woman he had once saved limped forward, tears in her withered eyes. She clasped his hand and whispered, "You changed everything." Jaro looked up, surrounded by beings who once saw humans as little more than pets. And now, they saw him as master. Not because of the fight, but because he did what no conqueror, no prince, no alien brute ever did. He chose mercy before power. And now power was his. If this story pulled you into the sands of battle and made you cheer for the underdog who rose above it all, then do not stop here. Subscribe to HFY Adventure Tales for more bold, emotional, and cinematic sci-fi stories where humans do more than survive. They change worlds. Hit like, leave a comment, and tell us, would you stay loyal to one alien queen or command a dozen wives like Jaro? Because here, every tale is more than fantasy. It is a fight for meaning.